So in 1958, Senator Elmer Monroney sponsored an act which mandated the price stickers that we get on our cars, which tell you how much it's supposed to cost and what you get for the price. So the price stickers are still called Monroneys after him, and they're still required. Those who don't live through olden times might not recognize everything on a vintage Monroney, such as this one's provided by Paul H. McGee from a 1970 Plymouth Suburban. And the Suburban was just basically a wagon. And to save money, the wagon actually shared with the Dodge and the Chrysler wagons. So first, let's look at the standard features that we get. Some of them are obviously required by federal law, like side lights and seat belts. And others are neat features like the dual master cylinder, which provides 2 brake fluid circuits so that if there's a brake leak, the driver still has partial braking. And these became standard at Chrysler Corporation with the 1967 cars. And it has a torsion bar suspension, which was still an advantage over the coil spring front suspensions at GM and Ford, although that was definitely in its waning days. The combined emissions reduction tools, or called the cleaner air system, Chrysler itself defined the cleaner air system as including cleaner combustion chambers, modified carburetors, slightly altered distributors. Now, every Chrysler did have an electronic voltage regulator. They started out with some 1969 cars and were standard in all the 1970s with a new connector, and it was used with a new isolated field alternator. The quote anti-theft lock just meant that you had to turn the ignition switch, which required a key, in order to remove the steering wheel or get out of park. The lane change feature activated the turn signals before you locked them into place so you could use them just for a few blinks. And that was also new for Chrysler for 1970. And they also had standard hazard flashers. You pulled something up from the steering column, which operated even when the brakes were being used. So when the brake lights were on, you still got hazard flashers. Now, the top line of this sticker shows the assembly plant, which was Belvidere, Illinois. That was also a new plant opening in 1965. It also shows the VIN number, the vehicle ID number. So VIN number is the VIN number. And we've blanked out part of that for privacy. And an order number. The colors had 2 character codes. This one was F8, and a trim code for the interior color and materials. Car had a sales code with 2 letters and 2 numbers. L is the low price class. So the price class started with economy, then low, medium, and high. And other codes showed you if we had a police car, a taxi, a super stock, race car, or so on. The next part of the code, 4, is the number of doors, and then the body code 6 is for a 3-seat wagon. And each bench seat stretched across the width of the car, so it counted as 1 row of seats. So when they say 3-seat, they actually mean capacity of 6 to 9 people. A code of PL21 would be a Fury 2 Coupe. PL41 would be a Fury 2 sedan. You can also decode the middle part of the VIN to find the engine. The letter G stands for 318 cubic inch V8. That was their economy V8. Very nice engine, very durable, very unappreciated generally. Always had a 2-barrel in those years. Model year, 0 is 1970. That's the last number in 1970. And assembly plant, D for Belvidere. And the rest of the VIN was just a serial number. Vinyl bench seats were standard on the wagon. As the description of the car itself indicates, the 318 V8 was standard on the Fury 9-passenger wagon, so it too has no price listed. Now, the Fury 6 and Fury V8 were considered to be different trims by Plymouth too, so a Fury 1 V8 would still have a standard V8, and the other lines are for options, including the prices. Trailer towing was a bargain because in addition to trailer wiring and hitch, it had durability upgrades such as a heavy-duty suspension, large radiator, fan shroud, better brakes, bigger wheels in many cases, and a transmission fluid cooler, which is quite nice for longevity. And some of these parts were shared with police or taxi packages. So the 70 Fury used the same brakes for towing, taxi, and police duty. All Furies, as a higher-end big car, had 15-inch wheels. The Fury wagon standard wheels were wider than any other Fury, including the 440-powered coupe, to deal with more weight. Suburban standard wheels were size J78. J-size wheels weren't even optional on other Furies. Buyers could even option out wider L-size wheels and tires. Wagons also had longer leaf springs, at 62 inches versus 52 on other Fury models, 10 more inches, with 6.5 leaves, again, even more than the 440 with a heavy-duty suspension. The transmission, it's listed as heavy-duty. That's an A727 torque flight. The base transmission for the Fury was a 3-speed, 3 on the tree, new process gear manual. The automatic for the 318 was normally an A904, which was a good light automatic, but the A727 could handle a lot more torque, which was handy for towing and for heavy loads. The problem was, of course, that the 727 cost more and weighed more. The axle ratio would normally be 2.71 to 1 on an automatic Fury 318, but the towing package brought it to 3.23 to 1. And wagon buyers could even get a 355 to 1 if they didn't get the tow package. Air conditioning often came with tinted glass in later years, but here you can see that the tinted glass was extra. The AM radio was quite expensive in today's money, costing about $490 today with a single dashboard speaker. A rear speaker was optional, a single rear speaker, along with an AM/FM radio and an 8-track. The 8-track AM combination cost $196 then. That's over $1,500 today. Power steering was also quite expensive. That would be about $830 today. The radial tires with fiberglass belts were a comparative bargain. Destination charge would today be $740 or so, compared with Chrysler's current charges of $1,600 to $2,000. So Plymouth used the Suburban name for wagons for many years, regardless of the car's actual names. The 1970 Suburban had the same body as the 1970 Dodge and Chrysler wagons, with the same 122-inch wheelbase. The equivalent sedans had 3 different wheelbases, with Plymouth being small, Dodge being medium, and Chrysler being large. Each one was 2 inches from the other. The Suburban was 220 inches long, 80 inches wide, and 58 inches tall, with a cargo area that went 119 inches from the back of the front seat to the end of the open tailgate. And again, this particular car was the entry-level wagon. It still had a rear roof-mounted wind deflector, which had come out the previous year, a power tailgate window and larger tires than Fury sedans. Chrysler wagons all had a dual-action tailgate, which could be a regular door or pickup-type tailgate. So buyers had a choice of interior colors, with 5 choices for the Fury 2 wagon alone. In current dollars, this car cost over $35,000, despite the single-speaker AM radio and other very basic fittings. It was far more expensive than Fury sedans, which cost around $24,000 in today's money. That's for a Fury 2 V8. And they cost more because they had very low volumes, which is why they only had one wheelbase shared with Chrysler and Dodge. And they also used more materials. A Fury 2 V8 weighed around 3,675 pounds, but the Suburban with 3 rows was over 4,200 pounds. So that's around 500 pounds more material. These are shipping weights, by the way. Curb weights would be at least 80 pounds more. That's why the big Plymouth wagon was shared with Dodge and Chrysler, though each of them had enough sheet metal and trim differences to stay on brand. But you can see the appeal of minivans when they arrived. They had a price premium like the old style wagons, but with far more interior space, far more convenience, far better gas mileage, but admittedly very little acceleration. Still, the minivan was not even starting development at Chrysler in 1970. The first sketches would start out in 1972. And for that, read my minivan book. All right, that's it for now. Thank you for listening.